What's up, everyone? Back for post-game Locked On Bucks, and it's another painful loss that we have to discuss here. The Bucks are really on this roller coaster right now, where the wins are either very, very enjoyable, or the games are a little bit painful. They are the streak busters. We said that this might be something.
Knew it.
We said that this might be something.
I got scared when Atlanta lost again over the weekend. I was like, oh great, Bucks going to be that 2-month tonic, setting up just perfectly for the Bucks to come in and blow another game against one of these sort of mid-tier teams.
Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. I'm your host, Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show daily and also find my work over at ESPN. Joining me, the founder of brewhoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden. As always, we thank you for listening to Locked On Bucks and making it your first listen of every day, even through the disappointing times. And I have to say, I must be in a little bit of a championship hangover myself, because sometimes when the Bucks have won, I've been like, okay, that was really fun. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of enjoyment out of this game. I'm yet to really get any type of elevated heart rate from any loss this season, and I think I'm in a championship hangover, Frank. But I will say, Twitter starting to get a little bit restless. Clearly, the Toronto loss and now this loss can be put in the bad loss category. There's no question about that. How are you feeling, though? Is your frustration level rising to any particular level right now? Because let's be real, these last two games are ones that they should have taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, you can, in a micro scale, I mean, you can, pretty much say, well, no individual game really matters. And I said it, like at the macro level, the main thing is getting through the regular season healthy and just putting yourself in a position that you've got, you're hopefully firing on all cylinders when you get to the playoffs. But I mean, they're just, Drew Holiday, obviously you need to get him back sooner rather than later. I mean, this ankle injury is taking a while for him to come back. It sounds like maybe he might be available to come back on Wednesday. It's difficult to see them beating Memphis without him, the way that they've kind of been stumbling around. But, we've also seen this team without Drew beat the Warriors and Nets. So who knows, right? They're just such a hard team to predict. And I think certainly this season has been just night to night, across the league. It's very hard to predict, what version of which team you're going to see. But at the end of the day, I mean, the Bucks right now, we're used to them playing without Brook Lopez, unfortunately, right? So that's just the reality that you've had to play with all year. You can't just, make excuses for every loss because of Brook Lopez. Like, we don't know if Brook's coming back, right? This may be the version of the team that you have. But certainly just the continued struggles, tonight being up, being not in command, but controlling the game. Every time the Hawks made a run, got to like 3 or 4, Bucks would hit a couple shots and kind of push the lead back out. The fact that you were in the driver's seat and, basically just folded down the stretch against a team that, again, it's been 2 months since they won a home game. And again, I don't know why it's been 2 months since the Hawks have won a home game. They're a way more talented team than that. But you're the team that out of all these teams, what was it, 10 losses in a row? You're the team that couldn't take care of business, and you had a lead. You were playing from the front, and once again, Giannis and Chris, ton of turnovers. The playmaking down the stretch faltered. I mean, Chris, 34 points on 22 shots. I mean, I'm not going to put much at Chris's feet on this game. He was really good. But Giannis, after that, I don't know how many games in a row he was 50% or better from the field. He's now been under 50% 2 straight games. And I mean, Antetokounmpo again showed he's been one of the toughest matches for Giannis going back to the playoffs. When he was in there for the Hawks in the playoffs last year, he really gave Giannis a good battle. And tonight, Giannis tried to dunk on him repeatedly, got a couple foul calls, but Okongwu got him a couple times as well. And I think he finished the game 2 for 8 after starting the game 6 for 12. And again, he's Giannis. He'll put up his numbers, but 27 points on 8 out of 20 shooting. Obviously, you want better from him. And repeatedly down the stretch, Giannis couldn't deliver. And they couldn't get those timely baskets. And obviously, the Hawks eventually did. I mean, they started off, I don't know what the Hawks' 3-point shooting was early in this game, but They score only 17 in the first quarter, couldn't make anything. We're getting good looks. And then over the course of the rest of the game, everything kind of evened out. They end up shooting over 40% from three. Bucks were right there. So the 3-point shooting was not the differentiator in this game. Bucks had 16 of 38. The Hawks were 15 out of 36. So again, the old thing, when the Bucks don't have Giannis, or in this case, don't have Drew, obviously much more comes down to 3-point shooting luck. But tonight, again, free throws were a big story. And this time, unlike Saturday, it was the reverse, where the Hawks were able to draw a ton of fouls. Not really like necessarily right at the rim, but they drew a ton of fouls when the Bucks were trying to close out. And again, just kind of sloppy defense. Bucks don't usually give up a ton of free throws. Tonight, they give up 30 out of 32 from the foul line. Bucks 20 out of 24. And you look at how even kind of the rest of the numbers were, 44.3% from the field for the Bucks, 44.2% for the Hawks. 10 offensive rebounds to the Hawks, 9 for the Bucks. Everything was kind of right pretty even. Turnovers were even. It just came down to the fact that the Bucks couldn't keep the Hawks off the line, and they made their free throws, and especially down the stretch, obviously, the Bucks just couldn't get stops. And you look at the quarter by quarter points allowed, 17 in the first quarter, and then the Hawks score 33, 33, 38. In that fourth quarter, 38 to 26, they just got the doors blown off them in the fourth quarter. And, it just felt like they just didn't have an answer there as the crowd really got into it. And again, another underwhelming loss from the Bucks, who, have this golden opportunity with the rest of the East sort of in flux. The Bulls have lost 4 games in a row. The Nets just lost Kevin Durant. They've been losing games, and now the Bucks have slid all the way to 5th in the conference. And Philly's kind of right behind them as well. They're basically a couple ticks away from dropping down to 6th. So again, they just have a lot to clean up. And if you're buying tickets to Bucks home games these days, like, you're paying money to see this team night to night. You can say, hey, we won a championship. We just got to get to the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. But the night to night product is just really inconsistent right now, and injuries are a factor. But, look around. It's the same story for a lot of teams.
Yeah, I think your last point is the most important one. It's the same story for a lot of teams. So there's probably fans all across the NBA that are feeling the same thing. And as you pointed to, Chicago on a skid here. Brooklyn, we know, as we pointed to on yesterday's podcast, I think they're going to struggle because they're typically without Kevin Durant this year, they haven't played too well. We'll see. They lost today to Cleveland. So that's why it's a shame when you look at the big picture. I know, Frank, you've been talking about the seeding and the fact you don't want to let this slip too far. The one thing that was absolutely shocking to me looking at the box score, because I'm glad you pointed out how even it is across the board, and the only thing that really stands out is the free throws. I was shocked that there was such a big discrepancy. The Bucks had 10 more personal fouls than the Hawks, given how many take fouls the Hawks were giving up to slow down the transition. Now, we saw this in the postseason last year. Personally, I think I hate it. I think it's ugly to watch. The game drags out. You got guys at the free throw line, and you're stopping the cool play. So Atlanta won the game, so I feel like they're going to be feeling pretty comfortable about the way they went about it today. But I just think as a viewer, it's a really ugly way to play basketball. I'm here in Australia now as well, covering the NBL, which uses FIBA rules. And if you even try that shit, it's 2 free throws and the team keeps the ball. I know there's a lot of calls out there. I'm seeing it on Twitter from people that are suggesting that should be the case here in the NBA. I think next year they're going to do something. I'm not sure if they'll go as drastic as 2 free throws and the ball, but we'll see what happens there. But the Atlanta Hawks, but can we just talk about Danilo Gallinari? I haven't watched too much of Atlanta this year, but everything that I've seen about Gallinari online has been that he's been awful. He's been struggling. He can't get anything going. This guy kills the Bucks every single time. And he got to the free throw line 8 times. He was only 4 or 5 from the field, but got to the free throw line with 7 of 8 in his 16 points, which would have been pretty handy if you're a fan of prize picks and you're looking at the bench players and which role players could potentially, you could jump on their props and go the over there. Prize Picks has the best NBA DFS prop game on the market. It offers more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator and has the superstar players as well as the bench players or role players, as in Danilo Gallinari, so you can win money there on whether it's points, assists, rebounds, threes made. You pick 2 to 5 players and an over and under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. And it's just you versus the projected numbers. So it's a bit of fun there. If you're into that type of thing, just go to prizepicks.com or download the app. All users that deposit and use the promo code NBA will get $50 free on your first Prize Picks entry if it scores a single point. All users that deposit and use the promo code NBA will get $50 free if your first Prize Picks entry scores a single point. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. What did you see from this team defensively tonight, Frank? And I found it quite funny, and we should have known that this was going to happen with Wesley Matthews, who a lot of the times found himself out there on Trae Young, and hey, had a pretty damn good start. But we were talking the other day about how he was defending without fouling on Kevin Durant, defending without fouling on Steph Curry. They weren't all fouls on Trae Young, for sure, but he ends up fouling out of this game in pretty quick time. And then, as you mentioned, obviously the Bucks don't have Drew Holiday. I saw a lot of vitriol towards George Hill in this game, which I found kind of fascinating. I mean, he's been one of the steady hands all year. Is he a dominant player? No. But is he a player that I'm worried about in the absolute slightest? No. He was still a +3 on the box score today. I don't know how he does it, but he's one of these players that the plus-minus is always favorable in, no matter what happens to the Bucks in the game. Obviously, he wasn't out there at the end when the Hawks took over. But the Bucks are playing without the guy that's at the point of attack. They're playing without the guy that's normally man in the middle. As you pointed to, Brook Lopez hasn't been there all season. But let's just say that Brook Lopez doesn't return, which we don't know. How concerned should the Bucks be? Because this, again,
they're not winning a championship with the current roster and no Brook Lopez. I mean, I just think your margin of error is so hard to win a championship. Like, I don't know. I mean, again, is there some move to get Rolo or some other center? You know, then maybe we revisit it. But I mean, I would say this, like, nobody's really wanting to say that. But I don't see how you repeat without Brook Lopez, you know, because again, you don't necessarily need Brook Lopez for like every team, but I mean, Brook's really good. And I think, sorry to cut you off, but one thing I was looking at like recently was the Bucks shot chart, right? The frequency of shots, what they give up in each zone, right? Put aside like the percentages that teams shoot against them. The shot chart this year is like across the board worse. They're giving up, I think, a couple percent more of their total shots at the rim. They're giving up like 3 or 4% more from three, fewer mid-range. Obviously, you know, it all adds up to 100%, so it has to come from somewhere. But what you're seeing with this defense, no shock, right? Like you don't have a all defensive caliber center that you're starting. And as much as, you know, they're kind of doing the best they can with Bobby and playing the sort of more aggressive defense and relying on Giannis to clean up, you know, the shot chart is worse. You're giving up more at the rim. You're giving up more threes. The only thing that's been the saving grace is that teams are shooting a lot worse from three this year than they were a year ago. You had bad luck last year. You're having good luck this year. You're not horrendously worse. I think it's only a couple percent worse at the rim this year compared to last year. But it's definitely worse. You're definitely worse on the defensive glass. No shocker. Again, you're having to play smaller. So I think that I guess, Kane, I didn't really let you finish with it, but for starters, defensively, you cannot be as good without Brook Lopez as you were, of course, with him a year ago. And again, it's not to say that Brook is going to close every game, whatever, like matchups. Sometimes, you know, he'll be maybe not as big a factor as in other games. But that's part of the thing that like nobody's really talking about, right? And there is a few weeks left here before the trade deadline. So we'll see what they know at the point of the trade deadline. There's still the buyout market afterwards of what, you know, if Brook is going to be out for the rest of the season, kind of how they adapt to that. Obviously, the hope is still that he's going to come back. That's no one's saying that he's not. But that's a very bad place to be if we're saying like, what does it look like, you know, if Brook Lopez doesn't come back. So anyway, I'll let you finish your point.
No, I mean, I think it's the perfect answer because this is why I mean, taking aside the fact that you want to win these games and you're still frustrated that you're losing these, it's kind of in losing streaks that they had last year, for instance, when Drew Holiday was out there. I was like, well, I know why you're angry and I know it's frustrating. They've lost 5 games in a row, but let's be real. If they don't have Drew Holiday, they're not winning the title. So we witnessed last year how this Bucks team won the title, and everyone will talk rightfully so about Giannis 750, and they'll talk rightfully so about Chris Middleton going absolutely berserk on multiple occasions to win them games. But they also won games where the offense was terrible. They couldn't hit a 3 for the first 3 series of the postseason, and they won based on defense. And there was individual games, and I think about game 1 against Atlanta where it wasn't the first time that we saw, well, you can't play Brook Lopez in this series. He can't play. And then by the end of the series, you say, holy shit, without Brook Lopez, you're probably not getting through there. And so I saw a tweet today, and I don't know who said it, but there was basically some conversation about the fact that even if Brook returns, then Bobby should start. And I was like, come on. You can't have watched the postseason run last year and have that opinion, to me. And Brook Lopez hasn't played for a number of months now, and it's the same old story that if you don't have a guy for a number of months, you forget. And Bobby Portis has been absolutely brilliant. He's underpaid. He deserves a hell of a lot more money than he has, and he's been so damn reliable. But I agree, and that's why I was interested to see what you'd say about Drew Holiday and Brook Lopez. Clearly, they want to get Drew back, but we're kind of assuming that they will at some point. But the big question mark for me is still the man in the middle, Brook Lopez. Is he coming back? Because I agree, big picture, I think they're in trouble if he can't, and I'm sure they're aware, and that's why this trade deadline is going to be interesting to see whether they try and plug a hole there. I'm not sure if we'll take any clues from that or whether they believe they need it anyway, but it's certainly something to be concerned about.
Yeah, and I thought, I mean, in terms of what we saw defensively, I think the last two games, I think there's been some stuff with Giannis where, like in today's game, they were switching a lot of the Gallinari stuff. It was like all switches. He kept getting small guys on him, right? And, this is the thing, right? Like Giannis can be switched onto a perimeter player and handle those guys better than, most big men, right? The problem is, like, if you don't switch it, or if you do switch it, then suddenly Gallo's got a little guy on the post. That's happened repeatedly tonight. And, he can obviously get cooking doing that. We saw that in the playoffs last year as well. It also seems like John Collins never misses mid-range jumpers when he's got a smaller guy on him. I don't know how he was only 5 for 15 tonight. I couldn't believe that when I saw this line that he was 5 out of 15. But the flip side is, if you don't just switch Giannis, then it's hard, right? Because if you try to play it aggressively, then Gallinari can float back for a pick and pop three. Obviously he's not going to like roll down the middle of him for like an alley-oop or something. And so there's like different, or if you just like hang back and like kind of have Giannis play a little more of like a zone drop type thing, then obviously Gallo as well can get open if he kind of floats over to the three. So he kind of presents challenges that way, and we saw it last year too. Like he creates mismatches just because it's hard not to kind of switch on him. But I thought, Giannis in that Toronto game, who knows? Hopefully it's not affecting him. He was favoring his right knee visibly during I think maybe the second quarter or so of the Toronto game. He was icing his right knee during the game. He's had, long term has had, kind of off and on soreness in the right knee. I thought he got beat on the perimeter a bunch of times. I'm not saying it's like, oh, it's definitely because of his knee being hurt, but just kind of acknowledging it. But he got kind of beat a number of times on the perimeter in the Toronto game, where he kind of came out and even when he wasn't just trying to do a hard closeout, guys were able to get by him and get going towards the basket. Normally his closing speed, he can challenge and contest still, even if teams get a step on him. But I thought tonight, again, you look at his numbers, the 8 of 20, that'll be, kind of an obvious thing. But I mean, he's a minus 17, right? And again, you don't look at individual single game plus minus as being like some like sign that like, oh, God, this guy was worthless, right? And Pat Connaughton was a minus 21. I don't know how much that says about Pat Connaughton. But when you talk about a guy like Giannis, who is the fulcrum of the Bucks defense, especially right now without Brook, without Drew, they obviously were not able to defend at a very high level. And he still had a couple like spectacular plays like that, play where he kind of got back and blocked Okongwu at the rim. I don't know. He only had one block. I thought he had at least like 3. But that's kind of those things. Like, I mean, if this version of the Bucks without Drew, if Giannis is a minus 17, curtains. I mean, there's no way, because
shouldn't be this close, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, he's the guy that you're relying on. So it's not to say like, that he was horrendous or doing something wrong. But at the end of the day, I mean, he's still, he's still a bigger guy. You don't want him necessarily having to switch all the time. And sometimes, like, again, the fact that he can switch, it's not his fault that he can do different things, and that switching is probably the move you want to do when Gallo has a chance to run a pick and roll play, and Giannis can't then just go back and defend in the post to get for the smaller guy, right? So it's not Giannis's fault, but it's interesting because they were able to sort of exploit sort of the matchups in ways that typically usually you're just sort of trying to keep away from Giannis. In these last couple of games, we've seen examples where they've actually been able to go at Giannis. I think Siakam got like a pick and pop 3 at one point. They've done kind of 2-man game stuff, I think, with Siakam doing an inverted screen roll with Fred VanVleet. So again, I mean, that's kind of one of the things. Like even if you're kind of like, oh, I don't care, whatever, regular season. I mean, Giannis isn't winning an MVP if Bucks are 5th or 6th or even 4th, I think, in the East. So even if you don't care so much about like the night to night losses in that way, if you care about Giannis winning, getting hardware, or Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton going to the All-Star game, the Bucks case for any of those individual awards are going to be definitely weakened by the fact that they've been just very blah in these games. And, fortunately, we've at least had a couple of these big national TV games against the Nets and Warriors to give us at least some positivity and, maybe swing the narrative a little bit because everybody was watching. But I was hoping tonight, being a national TV game, I was like, oh, well, maybe that'll defray the pessimism I have, because this just seems like the kind of game the Bucks are going to lose with this huge losing streak. Oh, they can't lose to the Hawks. Lost 10 straight games at home.
The Hawks aren't good enough.
The Hawks aren't good enough. I mean, and I think Justin brought up the stats of the Bucks record against like 6th or whatever things the other night. And I was looking at it again today because obviously the standings are fluctuating. I think coming in this game, the Bucks against the 6 through 12 teams in the East were 4-10, I want to say, which today would drop them to 4-11. They're 0-5 against Toronto and Atlanta combined now. And I think they were 5-3 against the top 6 or top 5 or whatever, right? So again, there's not a lot to sort of, differentiate, you can argue, between the top few and the next group, right? That, especially given how this season has been. But it's like at some point, guys, like you got to beat the teams that you're competing with for playoff positioning. And the irony is, hey, maybe maybe they don't want to be a 3 seed because then they got to play one of these like so lower seeds, and those are the teams that they haven't been able to beat all year. So I don't know. I mean, it's just annoying, I think, if you're a fan, because again, like, it's right there. East is right there. Like what, the first top 5 or 6 teams all have 27 wins right now, including the Bucks. The Bucks have played a bunch more games. They're not like out of it even for the top seed technically, but they're just leaving so many wins just on the table there. And I don't know. I mean, I don't think they were just sitting around waiting for Drew Holiday to come back. But I don't know. I also don't look at this as being like, oh, they're just playing down to their competition. They obviously want to win these games. You think they want to lose to Toronto 3 straight times, including twice in a row at home? I don't think they want to lose those games. I think they're trying hard. Toronto's got the disadvantage on a back-to-back. I just think they're in a rut right now. And again, they're going to have these occasional, really good games because it's the NBA night to night. But I also think the Warriors sucked on the night that they beat the Warriors. And I think that the Nets stunk on the night that they killed the Nets. So again, I mean, it's not to say that those were not really impressive wins. But it's just so hard to over-index on any individual game. And all I know is right now the Bucks have lost 6 out of 8. Okay, and I think, has Giannis been available for all of those? I think most of those. So it's just like, man, if you got 2 out of the 3 guys, you need to be winning most of these games. And so far, it just looks like, I mean, what is it? They're 16-3 with all 3 of them, and they're now they're 16-3 with all 3, and they're, I guess, 11-16, I think, with when they don't have all 3 of their big 3. So they just basically become a Jason Kidd team somehow. Like when they're missing Drew Holiday, it's like, you guys were awesome when Eric Bledsoe was the point guard. Like, figure it out, But again, they're just in a rut right now, and unfortunately, they're not getting easier games coming up that they can kind of work through it.
Yeah, if you're looking at either, as you pointed to, the MVP odds or the championship odds, probably a difficult game to be trying to play right now, but you can check them all out at betonline.ag, which remains the #1 spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. It is a new year, and there's a new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON to get started there. And it doesn't have to be basketball. There's football, basketball, hockey, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino game. So don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for this year. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. Most of this podcast has been negative. But I like to be positive. And so I will say, and I tweeted about this, watching Chris Middleton tonight and some of the shot making was really making me laugh on the couch. I mean, when this guy is feeling it, and it was taking me all the way back to the playoff game in Atlanta when he went absolutely nuts. And he had 34 points tonight. Unfortunately, as you pointed to, the turnovers were a problem. He had 8. Giannis had 5. That was the total. 13 turnovers attributed to Giannis. And Chris, part of that is how much they had the ball in their hands. We should acknowledge that. But yeah, not the best night as far as turnovers go. But some of the shot making, some of the footwork for Chris, when he gets dancing and he's putting the ball through the legs and he hits nothing but net. He's awesome to watch when he gets going. It's a shame that they couldn't finish it off tonight, but he had some beautiful shot making tonight, which was at least a lot of fun if the result didn't quite go our way. And I would imagine, I think that Hawks fans would be feeling similar to Celtics fans if he keeps doing this. Remember, I had some Hawks fans say, oh yeah, real therapy session. Well, by the way, Celtics beat the Bucks plenty of times where Chris Middleton still had 35 points. And they were just like, is this guy ever going to miss a shot again? So it doesn't always mean the Bucks are going to win. So zip it, Hawks fans.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a very nice run. I mean, again, like the Bucks are obviously better when they have Drew Holiday. Kudos to Chris here. He was very bad in the Detroit loss that kind of started this funk, right? They're 6-8.
I forgot they lost to the Pistons. That's sad.
Yeah. I mean, that's still one is just like one that just sticks in your craw, right? Because again, it's like you're 2-6, including that stretch. You should at least be 3-5. But I mean, he in this stretch, last game against Toronto, also not great. 16 points in 12 shots, so he 9 free throw attempts in that game, 8 free throw attempts tonight. That's encouraging for a guy that doesn't get to the stripe that much. But other than, again, he's been night to night, just very consistent. And you look at the last 5 games, 4 out of 5 at 50% or better from the field, other than the Toronto game. And yeah, I mean, if you told me coming in tonight that Chris was going to give you 34 on 22 shots, I would have felt pretty good. But certainly the playmaking responsibility, month of January, which started with that Detroit loss, 21.1 points, which feels like it should be higher, 6 assists, 6 rebounds, 3.7 turnovers, right? We're not used to seeing Chris putting up that many turnovers on an average kind of nightly basis. So again, it's just really hard, especially when you get into these crunch time situations. Not having Drew as that kind of lead creator, it just puts a lot of pressure on Giannis and Chris. And again, I mean, Giannis got the ball repeatedly on the left block and, was able to size up the defense. He settled for some jump shots, missed all his jump shots. Okongwu that was like a personal highlight reel block that he had to force that jump ball. I mean, that was embarrassing for Giannis getting sat on his ass the way he was. So again, like, the Hawks just outplayed them badly in the fourth quarter. And the Hawks finally looked like the Hawks team you thought you were going to get this season. Again, they've had a few false starts kind of repeatedly this year, though. So we'll see if this is any sort of turning point for them. I think when they beat the Bucks the last time in Atlanta, it started, I think, a run of 7 straight wins for them. So we'll see if they can use this as another kind of spurt. But obviously, then they kind of backslid again after that stretch. So yeah, it's just kind of tough for the Bucks right now. I mean, it's just a tough sledding, and it gets harder on Wednesday. It's going to get harder. You have to go to Memphis against a team in Memphis that's obviously been playing even better. And man, if you don't have Drew Holiday again on Wednesday, which I don't know, at best maybe it's a coin flip, kind of reading the tea leaves with Bud pregame. That's not a matchup I'm going to be very optimistic about, right? So it's just a tough stretch for the Bucks right now, and again, it's the silver lining is, again, as we said, the East. Teams are losing left and right near the top of the East. The Cavs are the only team that seems to be playing really well right now, but again, it's just missed opportunities left and right if you're the Bucks.
Don't forget to check out the Locked On Bets podcast with your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. They'll have you covered with all the betting action if you're into that type of thing. But you're right, this game against Memphis, I think for the most part, would be a pretty entertaining matchup. But yeah, maybe for the Bucks, if you really want to get a win, might bring some anxiety for the fans. And by the way, Drew Holiday, if you do come back for that game, have fun with Ja Morant. That's a pretty tough matchup for your first game back. We know he's been having a pretty incredible season as well. But we'll be back tomorrow to lead up to that Memphis game. Maybe we'll have some news regarding Drew Holiday leading into this game. I doubt it. Let's be honest. We know how the injury front usually works with the Bucks. So we'll see what comes up there. And then, of course, we'll be back post-game after the Grizzlies game as well. So thanks.
By the way, one stat here that I just was seeing, John Schumann from NBA.com just pointing out, first time the Bucks have lost all season with a lead going to the fourth quarter. I think they were up 5, going into the fourth. They were 23-0 with the lead going into the fourth quarter. The Suns are the only team better. They're 27-0. So we'll say this. It's not like it's been a theme of the Bucks that they, take fourth quarter leads and then they blow them late, right? Obviously, they did not impress down the stretch against the Raptors. Some of the same, I'd say, problems down the stretch offensively in that game as this one. Yeah, unfortunately, they're losing in new ways, Kane. They found a new way to lose by losing a fourth quarter lead for the first time all season, just in case people needed one more thing to, not feel great about here on a Tuesday.
That's an exciting way to finish. Most of their problems have been in the third quarter, actually, which is so typically they're losing entering the fourth when they lose games, obviously, as the stat points out.
And I think we were messaging with Eric. Somebody pointed out to me, I think they're like +8 and +4 per 100 in the first 2 quarters, and then -4 in the third quarter, and like slightly positive. Well, now they're probably about even or negative after this quarter. In the fourth quarter. And Eric, we were talking with our friend Eric Name, and Eric was just like, referencing, Seth Partnow, the rubber band effect. Like if you are tending to play awesome in the first 2 quarters, and, usually teams then reel you in a little bit if you get out to a big lead. So some of that, I don't know, again, is there something to really be read into the third quarter problems this year? I don't know. I don't think that certainly was, the big issue tonight. I think they had at one point, didn't they have like a 10-point lead? Did they have a 10-point lead at some point in the fourth quarter? I mean, they were in perfectly good shape in the fourth quarter. Third quarter was not the problem tonight.
Agreed. We'll discuss more tomorrow. Everyone can sleep on this one. Mull it over. Get their
sleep
thoughts.
On something else. Think about something else. Watch other sports. Think about the Packers if you're a Packer fan this weekend. Just forget about the Bucks until Wednesday night, and then I don't know. Then you may want to forget about the Bucks again after Wednesday, depending how things go. We'll see. Who do they play after Wednesday? Is there any? I'll look this up before we leave. They play the Bulls at home. They have the Bulls at home on Friday. Bulls also struggling right now. So let's just say this: if the Bucks lose on Friday or on Wednesday in Memphis, and then were to lose again on Friday against the Bulls, I would say we probably are not podcasting on Friday night if that happens. And then they get the Kings though the very next day at home again. So let's just say I really hope they can get a win before Sacramento comes to town.
Speak for yourself, Frank. Speak for yourself. I'll be behind the mic commiserating with our great listeners. We'll catch you all tomorrow.